So, welcome to another episode. It's all about you. Tonight, we have an amazing guest tonight, master of everything, creator of all things, the director of many, Mr. Troy Burton from Baltimore, Maryland. Hey, Troy, how you doing tonight?
I am doing extremely well, and I'm grateful to be here. But first and foremost, let me say this. I just want to thank you for inviting me, Lonnie. We have wonderful history, and it's always an honor and a pleasure to work with you because I've just watched the work that you do, and it's wonderful. And I've watched how you've grown in this city and how you work effortlessly to grow this city and grow positivity. So I just wanted to say that to you and give you your flowers before we talk about whatever I do.
So, as arrogant as I know I can be, I'm going to accept those flowers. So what you don't know is when I first moved to the city and I wanted to do an event in the city, I looked around, and I came to your center. And I saw you and I saw what you were doing, especially here within the city. And I said, okay, yeah, I'm gonna know him. I'm going to be like that in this city and I'm going to make a difference. So it was in seeing that as one of the first positive people here in Baltimore City. Because for a long time, most of the people that I would see here in Baltimore City that was doing work, and I still see it to this day, is Black women.
Yeah.
And so they became my immediate friends slash family here within Baltimore City. So in meeting you, because I wanted to do something to honor Black women, actually. Because those are the people I saw not only in my life, but here in the city doing work. So meeting you was just so different.
just just there making things happen, trying to make sure, just stay true to myself. And that has always been the thing. Stay true to yourself. Because a lot of times in Baltimore, we get caught up in the spirit of what's behind a name. And it's not about the name, it's about the works. And so that's something that I've always stayed true, to my work that I do here in the city.
So tell us about some of your work.
Wow, where do you want to start?
Oh, let's see. One of my favorites, the Real Nigga Show.
Real Nigga Show was a labor of love. That was something that it came from an extremely honest space. I was teaching at the Arena Players Youth Theater, and I really want to talk about that a little later too. But two of my former students there, Robert Lee Hardy and Joshua Dixon, along with Easy Jackson, the legendary rapper Easy Jackson, they approached me, and they were young men. Josh was still a teenager. Robert was in college, and Easy had just come home from the Navy. And they wanted to do something as Black men, a creative expression on the stage. And they just didn't know how to make that happen or what to do with it. So they came to me and said, hey, Burton, we want to do something. We just don't know what it is we want to do. So we got together and we sat down and let me say this. I have been mentored by some beautiful people in Baltimore. I've had the best mentors, and that's why I talk to a lot of young people about having a mentor and what a mentor should be, because a lot of times we have mentors out here who are false. And so
Yes.
I had some of the best mentors, and when these young guys approached me, I realized it was my turn to step up. It was my turn to say, okay, let me see what I could do.
So I'm gonna hold you right there. You said you had some of the best mentors. I think I know some of the. I'm not gonna name call. I'm gonna allow you to give them their flowers. Who were they?
Wow. I mean, I'll go back to high school. I'm a proud graduate of Frederick Douglass Senior High School, and one of my mentors, Jill Kern, she's no longer with us. She was the one that saw me as a kid, maybe like 12, 13 years old, and pulled me. And she was the first one that lit the fire. And she knew how to mentor me and pass me along. And then I went to Morgan State University, where I met the legendary, the late great Dr. Nathan Carter. And Dr. Carter mentored me in ways that were unbelievable. I learned the business. I learned the music business from Dr. Carter, more so when most of the students that he mentored, it was about the music. Dr. Carter, he showed me the business because I was on work study, and I would be in the office in there helping him to orchestrate the tours for Morgan State University Choir where we would travel all over the world. So I was getting the firsthand, as a college student, and he would mentor me. He would tell me things like, be careful. Certain people of a certain persuasion are going to look at you a certain way, and don't take your pants off. So things like that. So where he took on the role of saying, hey, I'll see you through this, but not just the business, not just music, but life. So that was a second mentor. I worked with the wonderful, the legendary Hugh Carey. And these are old school people, some names that people may not know, but Hugh was very instrumental in shaping a lot of the arts in Baltimore. And Hugh sent me to Arena Players, told me to go down to Arena Players, meet the director, Ed Terry, and you're going to work with him and you'll do what he needs you to do. So when I went to Arena Players, I met several mentors there. I met Sam Wilson, who was the founder of Arena Players in 1954. Up until he passed in 1995. And I met Sam. Sam was a brilliant man. He was a professor at Coppin State, and he ran a theater department there. I think he also taught English. And so he mentored me. He was the person that told me, you should direct. You always got this mouth, and you're always telling other directors what they should do with their shows. So he told me, he said, you need to direct. That's another funny story that I can tell you about. But he was a mentor. Ed Terry. Ed Terry was a mentor because Ed Terry was like a father to me. He was another director at Arena Players, and he taught me so many wonderful things. Even just mentoring me to make sure, in my studies at Morgan and studies beyond Morgan. And real funny story about how much of a mentor and how much he poured into me. Ed Terry was directing the show, The Tap Dance Kid. He called me and said, I want you to come down here. I want you to audition for this. You're going to play the lead in The Tap Dance Kid. And I said, well, I don't tap dance. He said, you will by opening night. And for the next 6 months, he worked with me one-on-one at least 3 to 4 times a week, like a coach will work with an athlete. And by opening night, I was stunned. And so that's pouring into me. So he was another mentor. And then one of my, another mentor, Catherine Orange from the Arena Players. To this day, I just saw her yesterday. And I just love Mrs. Orange and working with her. And she was also the one who was a mentor in my teaching career. Because before I had a arts administrative career, I was a teacher in Baltimore City Public Schools. So I had many careers. We can talk about that too. But Catherine Orange turned me loose in a room of 50 kids and said, here's a script. I want you to do this. You're only 22. You're a young teacher, but you can do this.
So I'm going to stop you there, though. What I don't want you to do, and what I'm not going to allow you to do, is to tell your whole book.
Okay.
Because go ahead.
Because the book is
within the next that part. So now y'all got a snippet of it.
Yeah, but I do have to mention one.
I need you to mention that one important one. I believe I know who she is because it's a legendary family here in the city. Maybe I don't know, but go for it.
Carey Calloway Murphy. Ran down.
Well, you know.
Everything that all my other mentors poured into me, she took everything to the next level. Just hiring me to work at the UB Blake Center. First, because I worked my way from the bottom, from the internship straight on up to being an executive director. I've had every position on the step ladder of the UB Blake Center. But Carey Murphy was so important to me because she taught me so much. She recently passed. The grief is still with me right now. But she just taught me so much. And I said all of this to say this. It is important that our young people have mentors, that, they have people that can pour into you outside of mommy and daddy and family at home. And because that made my love for community extremely strong. And it has showed me the village. So going back to the nigga show, you see how I tied all that together. When the guys from the nigga show came to me, I knew it was my turn. It was my turn to step up to the plate. And I did, because they didn't know what they want. And I had to figure it out. And we got together and we workshopped some pieces. I remember Easy Jackson bringing me a piece straight from the Navy called What's Happening, Brother? And I read that piece and I was like, this is brilliant. And I didn't know him at that time. We just met. And then he gave me another piece called The Poison. And what I noticed in there were the word nigga, Nigga, and it was used as a term of endearment. And then I was like, ooh, we got to be careful with that. And then we were trying to figure out what to do. And I said, let's write a show called Endangered Species about young Black men. And I said, oh, that's kind of corny. And that's kind of, very typical of what white people would expect us to do. And then so I said, wait a minute.
Very typical of what?
Of what white people would expect us to do in our inner cities. So I said, you wrote this as a term of endearment. I wasn't all that happy about it. But then I said, no, let's just call it a real nigga show. And let's create a show that's based on that word. And I'm not saying that we should be saying it. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't. But what I'm saying is, hey, folks, let's explore it. Let's just not bury it like the NAACP decided to do and have a service. Because you decided to have a service for something that people keep resurrecting on almost every rap song that's out there. So that's not effective. So I said, let's deal with that. And we created a very thought-provoking piece that piece played for almost 20 years. And it changed over the years to reflect the times that we lived in. But we kept rewriting it, and the concept of it changed. And it became a cult classic here in Baltimore. But here's what I want to share with you that you may not know. The Real Nigga Show was invited to perform at Wilberforce University. And I'll tell the story and I'll be honest. I tried to get the show up at Arena Players and they turned me down. They told me no. They said, you're going to have to change the name of that show. And I was brokenhearted because my own theater, my own theater home, like they say in the church, turned me away. But what I did was, as an independent artist, I knew that this was a new day, a new era, and I had to represent with these young guys who were looking at me saying, what are we going to do? So I took my little cell phone at that time. I think it was a BlackBerry at that time. And I took my little BlackBerry and my little bank card at Chevy Chase Bank. And I went and I rented the theater project. And I said, I'll do this myself. So I invested my own money and showing these guys how we had to invest in our own projects. This was out of our mouths. And what we did, we printed our flyers and we sold that first run out in August of 2003, came back in 2005, came back in 2008, came back in 2013 and 14. And they go, and I think we did it in 2015, right on up to the pandemic, where we did a Real Nigga Show as a live stream. And that was the first time that when we did the show, it was worldwide. Because there were people who watched that live stream in Japan, in London, in France, over there in Paris. And, the guy who was working with me on the project said, Troy, you have people watching all over the world. But we already did this run of selling it out in Baltimore. And I refused to sell it out. There were a couple of liquor sponsors who were interested in it, and they wanted to put a renowned rapper in it. I refused to go that direction because I knew it had to stay. It couldn't go commercial in the sense of where people would be telling us how to create our works. Yeah, because I knew from the beginning, and I told the guys this from the beginning. What comes from the heart reaches the heart. And I knew that show could run and stay successful. So that's where I think you saw the first time you saw something I did in the theater.
It's the test of its time. And I just like, I want people to see it again.
Yeah.
And again.
Yeah.
And again. And it should have been on Broadway.
Yeah. It should have. But the thing about that is that it was the word. Every time someone approached me about moving it onto a larger platform, it was the word. The word. I don't know. We could put that on a Broadway marquee, and we could. And
But it amazes me how it's always the word when we feel it.
Mhm.
But when they do it and they say it, it's not the word.
Right.
It's about who we are.
And I felt as though it was a show that needed to stay in our community. And if you want to come, you come to the show, but you come to the show on our terms. My mother told me when I was talking to her about it, she said, all money ain't good money. So, and that's why I continue.
Black woman is black woman, okay? Woman. They know that all too well.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I produced it, and some of the guys at different times they came in, what resources they had, brought it to the table. And here's the thing that I said that you don't know. We were invited by a group of individuals from Columbus, Ohio, to do the show 10 years ago. And they invited us to perform. And we went, and it was wonderful. They paid us, flew us in, put us in hotels, and, all that stuff. And when they finished, and they sold out the show, a one night only show. When we finished, the people of Columbus said, we want to see more like that. Bring us something. And that group, they end up organizing and starting a nonprofit called the Maroon Arts Group in Columbus, Ohio. Look it up. The Maroon Arts Group.
Anybody go work.
Inspired. And if you go to their website, you will see the Maroon Arts Group talk about a real nigga show and bringing it to Baltimore. And it was amazing how we got that much love outside of Baltimore when their entities in Baltimore frowned upon us. We could go to a whole nother city and we could perform this show, and the people could rally themselves and do an arts nonprofit. And they have a building now. They have a multi-million-dollar building that they were able to obtain. That's beautiful. And I mean, it's double size of the UB Blake Center, where they have a full 500-seat theater and, banquet space and all that. And I was proud. And actually, they brought me back as a consultant, as an independent consultant to work with them, helping how to take that space and do what I did here at the UB Blake Center with, doing all the different programs with different groups and, rental space and performance space. And so I helped write their, kind of like help them write a strategic plan.
But see, not only do you have a theater background, you did a business background, acting, dancing, you're multifaceted. But secondly, you also have another love for wines. There's another thing that you do also that people don't know.
Which one is that? Is it working with Mesa?
Yeah, look, you are asking which one. Lord, we have a guest in the room. I'm going to Troy introduce the guest, but we have a guest in the room while we're talking. He goes, "Oh, you mean Mesa?" Like we're not going to discount who she is.
Yeah.
But you have a musical background.
Yeah, well, like I said, I spoke about Morgan State. Mesa and I were students together at Morgan State University. We got each other through school, that whole experience. I mean, down to the point where we even fed each other. There would be times we would buy, and we were so broke as college students, we would buy a sandwich and split it in half, and you got one and I got a half, and we go to class. We go to Dr. Sweeney's class, and so we made a commitment to each other. We became the best of friends, and we made a commitment to each other that we would always support each other's career. And if you go back to 2003 when we did the first Real Nigga show, Mesa was on the front door collecting the tickets, and people were coming and saying, "Aren't you the girl from Incognito?" And she was like, "Yes, but my best friend, I got to make sure he get his money." So
That's right.
Watching the box office for me.
I love it.
Things like that, or because she was
That's that Baltimore, baby.
Yeah, that's that Baltimore. We get in there and we hustle and we take care of each other. But we made a commitment. And when she got the gig for Stevie Wonder, I was just like, blown away. And watching her go in and sing back up for Stevie Wonder, doing the Jungle Fever, I saw on Oprah and on the Tonight Show and all those different things. And, I was just happy for her. And then when she got Incognito, that blew her career as a vocalist. And then on top of that, she got her own career as a solo artist. And we always worked together. And I remember going to New York with her to discuss the second single in the video with her record company. She was with GRP Records. And I was sitting in the room listening to them talking about production and this, and I kept raising my hand and saying, what about this? What about that? And then one of the guys that worked PR, he said, "Are you a publicist?" And I said, "No," didn't know anything what a publicist did. And they hired me as an independent publicist to do some project work. So when in this area, so I helped promote Mace's first record in the area, and the mayor, I think, who's the mayor at that time? I'm not sure. But when they had a Mesa Day in Baltimore, and so I was responsible on behalf of the record company to organizing that. And we went to schools, we went to City Hall, we went all over the place. There was a parade, and we had Mesa Day in Baltimore. But since then, she has hired me as her road manager. And so what I do now with that is I get a chance to organize whenever she's booked. I make sure everything falls in line with the band and, getting there and the performances, all the equipment is there and flying around the world. And that has been a blessing because that gig has taken me on every continent on this world, except Antarctica. I don't need to go there. But
listening to you talk all night, Joy, and hearing all those accomplishments and seeing your work and knowing your work here in the city and knowing how many people you've mentored with best friends, keeping our commitment to each other. And seeing all of that and all the young people who have gone on to become successful. Where do you see yourself in Baltimore City for 5 years?
For 5 years? Well, in 2018, when I decided to move on from the UB Blake Center, I started Burton Arts and Entertainment Consultant. And, working for myself, I had poured my talents and time into many nonprofits, Arena Players, which I still go to. That's my first heart. Arena Players, the UB Blake Center, just out here taking on young people who share their ideas. And in 5 years, I see myself just working for myself because I've poured a lot into the community. And I'm not sitting around waiting for it to be recognized or people, say, yeah, he's done this, give him his flowers. And I love them when they give them to me. But at the same time, I still have a lot of great ideas. I still have a lot of wonderful productions. Like I was so happy when you participated in the You Thought I Was Him project, and that was something amazing because after leaving, as an arts administrator, leaving a set structure, I said, I got to do my own thing. In my letter of resignation, that's what I wrote to the board of directors at the UB. They looked at me like, yeah, bullshit. And I said, no. I said, there are things in my career. And there were people there on that board that didn't even know that I was a director. They knew nothing about my other career. So I'm out here doing my thing. And the people that you're working for don't even see. Yeah, well, but that happens with a lot of our nonprofits, especially in the African American community. A lot of times in the arts organizations, a lot of times, Nate, are you stopping your foot to tell me shut up? Okay, because I'll just tell it all. But a lot of times people get on these boards and they don't understand what the role of a board member is to raise money. You're not there to operate the organization. You're not there to control the staff. You're there to actually raise money and help the service the mission. So I say, if you're on a board, look in the camera and say this and lean there. If you're on a board in Baltimore City for an arts organization, your number one job is to get out here, support the mission, and raise money for that organization. You're not there to govern the organization. You got that? I said,
Ooh, he said what he said.
and that's the thing. And I find that often in many of our organizations. And those of us who are really about the work, we just got to keep working to say, hey, this is what we do. Help us make this vision come alive, you know? And so I see myself in 5 years, I'll say it again, operating Troy Burton Arts and Entertainment Consultant as an independent consultant and still working to help support other organizations. Joy Baltimore. Joy Baltimore is one of my favorites because, I watched it grow. I watched it when there was no Joy Baltimore. It was a concept that you were giving your elevator pitch to, and to watch it grow. That is so important. And then to make sure that it's supported. So that's what I want to do. I just want to do art.
So I think about what you do, how you do it. I think about many other cities. And I think in doing something that you've been doing for over 40 years now, right? 40 years?
38 years.
I envision, honestly, outside of that book that will be coming soon, and maybe there's going to be jewels in that book. I can't wait to get that. But outside of that, Detroit Burton Thinkers.
Well, yeah, that could work. That would be nice. Hey, from your mouth to God and to the city of Baltimore. And if the city of Baltimore ain't acting right, I can go somewhere else. But I love my city. I want to do it here.
I was introduced to shows because I would watch your social media, and it was a show you went to in somewhat Pennsylvania.
Oh,
The Fulton
Theater. Mm-hmm.
What made me ride out there, stay in the hotel, see the show, not only see it, but told the director, I'm bringing some young people back. Mm-hmm. Went back again, bought the books and everything. And you saw the show.
Yeah, I mean, when I travel with Mesa, a lot of times when we go different places, when I have some downtime, I will venture off on my own. I've been in Africa, South Africa, and Morocco, and just walk the streets by myself. And I find things. And when I find them, good, healthy things, I want to share with people. Sometimes people talk about oversharing on social media, but, I share because I like to share what the world is and what I see. And sometimes it just may be wonderful. I had a conversation with a wonderful actor, Benny Pope, yesterday. And he said, I love what you do when you travel because you share places that we may never go or places that we desire to go. And we go because we've seen something and you shared it in a beautiful way. It's not a bunch of stuff from me, it's just me. Okay, Michelle. But it's about more, it's about just sharing what your experiences and that people can learn something. That's what I'm really about. And it goes back to my mentor pouring into me. So I pour into as many people as I can.
Now that we know who the amazing Troy is. And when I say amazing, everybody, simply amazing, still untapped. Still untapped, because some of the things I know that he has told me, baby. So the stage, arena players, the lyric, baby, the stories I've heard.
I used to work at the lyric.
Yes, look at this, but still untapped, and you just got a lot more going for you. So share your connection with youth theater, youth mentees, who have become want to become everything you wanted to become. Share.
Arena Players Youth Theater. Let's start there. When I started teaching there, I had never directed a play before, and when they gave me a play to do, I knew it was something I would love because I was always but I don't do as much. And a lot of people say, you don't get on stage and perform like you used to. There was an era when I was a performer in Baltimore City. And I ran from Toby's Dinner Theater. And this is something that Baltimore needs to know and honor and celebrate. I'm going to look in the camera and talk about this. Historically, there was a black dinner theater called Encore Dinner Theater. I'll say the name again. Encore Dinner Theater. It was the only African-American dinner theater that consistently ran in Baltimore. And I think they ran for maybe like 10 years. Belva Scott. I'll say her name because I don't think that Baltimore should recognize Belva Scott for what she did. And there was a period in most of like the 80s and then into the 90s that Belva Scott did Encore Dinner Theater, and it was for African-American artists to do African-American work. And that was the only dinner theater. You had people who produced stuff, and then they would have something, and then you would come and you would see it for one night only or a weekend. Belva produced seasons. So there were many of us in Baltimore we will go from theater to theater and perform between Arena Players, then we go to Encore, then we go out to Toby's, and I mean, you name it, we would just go from theater to theater because a lot of these theaters, they really weren't doing shows for African-American artists. And
when I tell you the history that you just laid down, it takes me back to the history that I know of Baltimore, even before that.
mm-hmm.
You know, the Sphinx, Pennsylvania Avenue, James Brown owned the hotel, and all. The history continued. What happened?
What I think happened was that as time goes on, we stop mentoring properly. You know, we start doing more interning and saying, "Hey, you come in here, you do this, do this, do this." You resume build. I'm looking at Nate, but that's what started happening. It started becoming resume building instead of really pouring into. Because when your mentors poured into you, you learned history, you met people, and from that it transferred on to the next generation. But now you have people, you see people, they come through, they're in this office, they're maybe for a year and a half, and then they move on. City Hall has so many, it's like a revolving door down there. But I'm not going to get it.
That means it isn't really about the arts. Well, now it's become just a business.
Yeah. And but I will honestly say, we have stopped pouring into people and just let people kind of like just glide and build their resumes and move on instead of really investing in them and then knowing how to reach back and pull the next one. When I look at my work at Arena Players, I can turn on CNN and see a former student on there. I can go to the movies and I can see a former student in the movie theater, several of them. I can go to Broadway and see several of them. I can call a lawyer. I can go to a restaurant and have a chef, a pastry chef, a doctor, if you want to, all of this stuff and they all come back to say it was because of my experience here in this community theater. I'll give you an example. I was visiting the theater yesterday. I'm just going on and on.
I love this.
There was a young lady who was, I remember in 1993, she was in youth theater. Her name was Ayana Green. And I don't know her married name, but she came into the theater to register her daughter for youth theater. And I looked at her and I said, I remember you. I remembered her smile. She was like, "Hi, Mr. Burton." And she gave me that smile and her name instantly came to me. She's a scientist. But right now, she came down to register her daughter for youth theater because she knew that this was a place that poured into young people. So when I talk to these students who have gone on to do all of these things, right now, teaching at Arena Players Youth Theater is a former student of mine who has taken my position. And one thing I'll say is that I don't sit in something and don't know how to pass the torch and bring the next generation. You raise them up, you teach them, then you move on to something else. You let them move in and take it to the next level. But you work with them. When we did Soulmates last year here in Baltimore, I would say 80% of the people on that stage were my former students working with me as my colleagues. My musical director, I met him when he was 10 years old. and he, and he's a Baltimore City public school teacher, and he plays for a church, but come down and he does musical direction for plays and all. And we're building community, and that's what Baltimore has forgotten, how to build community.
There's an old gospel song. That's some what I love my elders. And it goes, "May the work I'm done speak for me."
Yep. You get out there and you work. You bust your ass and you learn. Sometimes it's hurt. It hurts. Sometimes it's painful. I had a former student. I guess I shouldn't talk, but I'll talk about it. I had a former student because I was firm in my teaching, and the kids that I taught, I I made sure they knew that it was important that they be wonderful, they excel. And sometimes some of my tactics were a little bit, strong because I learned the same thing from my tax masters, and that's what I call them. I had a student one time wrote a post on Facebook, and he said that I was abusive because how strong I was. And we went back and forth, and I told him, I said, look, I was a taskmaster, not abusive. And so the beautiful thing was that we were able to talk, and we talked about how firm I was and how it made him feel. But he was able to come out on the positive side of that.
It is so interesting hearing you tell that story because how you mentor, I see it and I hear it, I feel it. But for me, I've learned I don't want to mentor somebody the same way that I may have been mentored because the generations are different.
Right.
So I know in moving into the new generation, I have to shift because they're not me. They're not going to receive it like me. That is a hard shift to tell somebody else when you only learned it one way.
But right, you learn the world that they live in because, like I share with friends of mine, I say, we live in a different world now. And in this world, if we're going to stay, into what we do, our passion, then we got to learn how the world will receive our passion, and you work with it. And I've learned to do that. Sam Wilson told me back in the '90s. He said, "I'm picking you to do this play because I'm concerned about how arena players will operate in the 21st century." So as a mentor, he was setting it up so that I could stick with them and do something. Sam died maybe 6 months after that. And powerful. Yeah. And so, but it was the thing he was learning from me. He was learning from me how we new generation. And that's something that, like I said, I mentioned the show Soulmates was one of the best experiences that I've ever had working with a cast.
When you said that that's oh Lord, when you said that that's the show that you were going to next, and you told me who that entailed,
Yeah.
if you did not knock that out the box,
that was a passion piece. That was a labor of love passion piece.
And not only that, you got the green light from the lady herself,
Valerie Simpson. Yeah. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Soulmates was called Soulmates, the music of Ashford and Simpson. I believe in teaching history, but teaching it in a way where people they can enjoy themselves and it can be entertaining, but it can satisfy that thirst for wanting to know the past. So I'm looking at the camera like I'm talking to them, but hey, because I want y'all to know. But working on Soulmates, it was interesting because putting it together, Valerie Simpson, who we're friends on Facebook. Mesa has performed with her before. Actually, I'm gonna post it when we leave here. It's a video of Mesa, Shaka Khan, Marsha, what's her name?
Bruce.
I can't think of it. Dionne Warwick. It was a thing in DC, and they were all in. That was the first time that I got a chance to really talk to Valerie Simpson. And it was Mason and Valerie Simpson. They let Valerie Simpson come on stage to sing with Shaka, I'm Every Woman, but they didn't give her a microphone. So Mason was up there, one of the singers. So Mason stopped and said, Miss Valerie, you wrote the song here.
I know this, right?
You know, she said, I can't stand here with a microphone singing I'm Every Woman. And that's your song you
I
wrote.
know that's right.
And no, take my mic. I won't be singing.
The respect.
You're right. Hey. But doing the music of Asher and Simpson, that was a special because that was about community. Now, and I said to arena players, I've always done shows that kind of lean towards the younger generation. Like the nigger show has always been an energetic show that, you know, what are the young people talking about in the streets? When I did the project, You Thought I Was Him, that was a balance about Black men and their families, but it was focused on a young 17-year-old boy, you know, so I've always focused on youth and my productions. But that one, I just wanted to do something that was for the age 50 and over. That's all. I said I just wanted to bring them to the blue light in the basement party and just have a good time because that's about community. And a lot of times people are forgetting what community was like. And that when you walked in the arena playing and the little scent of the incense, and then I had the blue lights and all that, people felt like they were walking into a basement who lived that period. And when I saw those 90-year-old mamas up there dancing,
See, that's the thing. Your plays are historical. They are connecting with the people. You feel it. You feel welcome. It's about you. It's who we are. So it's transgenerational also.
Yeah.
And they sell out.
you
They
know,
sell out.
that's important. That's important because people in the community they know when I put my name on it, they know that I put my heart into it. You know, it's not going to be something like a quick money grant. It's not going to be anything like that. It's going to be something that it's for people. And like I said earlier, what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And and I make sure, like You Thought I Was Him. To me, that was the most engaging piece that I've ever done because You Thought I Was Him was the spinoff from the Real Nigga Show.
So funny you said it because I was going to ask you that also. Because I remember when I saw the Real Nigga Show, I said to you that this needs to be in every high school in Baltimore City. Fast forward, and I feel embarrassed to even say this now. It needs to be in every middle school in Baltimore City.
Yeah, because I'm a teacher. That was my first career. My first career was being a teacher. I taught at Douglas High. I graduated from Douglas High School, but I also went back and I taught there for 10 years. And, I always every time I do a show, something for the stage, I come from the teacher perspective. What are these people going to get out? What are they going to leave with? You are there to observe something and you're there to get something out of it. It's your choice if you get it or if you don't. But it's my job to make sure I lay it out before you. And I think that's important. I think theater in Baltimore is so important because of the history of it. But also, I think a lot of times theater gets a bad rap when it comes to other art forms. We're so many busy promoting other things, and the theater people kind of just get those people over there doing a little something.
It is crazy you say that because when I hear you say that, and I guess for me, my interpretation of that is it labeled because it's fair and finance and budgeting and money is always coming down from men. It's almost like they're putting theater in that category of the LGBTQIA. Is that what it feels like? And so they can't associate with it. Because if they associate with it and it gets what it deserves, it won't make no sense. But see, let's go back a little further now. Because May 5th, something just happened. And that was the real Met Gala, the New York City Met Gala, which made history. History. Raised the most money of any Met Gala. Okay? When you bet what, Black? $31 million. What do you think about that?
I thought it was wonderful. I mean, the fact that they could take on a theme and how it could win, but how does that transcribe to the Black community?
But let's talk about
See, that was my thing. I said, this is wonderful. Of course, Diana Ross shut it down, because she took the steps, she took the floor, she took it, and the
And well deserved.
right. However, I'm thinking, okay, where's that money going? Who is it benefiting? How does it get back into the community?
It doesn't.
Because we have one or something similar here, and I don't.
You start in trouble.
Well, not trouble, but
I got the side and see. But go on. I'm ready. I'm here.
This is me and my own. What I don't know, and I try to learn what others are doing in the arts, and so I question if we have a Met Gala that's supposed to be connected with Baltimore, and a Met Gala should be connected to a museum. Number one, and this is not to shade those I'm not really familiar with the ones. All I know is that I've seen pictures on social media, but and does it benefit community? And so I'm not asking you those questions.
Well, I'm going to say not when you acquire it in a way that it wasn't.
Okay, well, but it needs to come back to Baltimore because it's out there at what is it, live, and it's not connected. I don't know. Are they raising money for a community organization? What is all that about?
Well, now,
Or is it just a social event? But when you take something that is established and you kind of take it and create your own, then you're reinventing the wheel. And when you reinvent the wheel, you have to follow through with the whole vision of that. But you can't call it a Met Gala because it's not connected to a museum.
Well, then you heard that.
A Met Gala for the Great Blacks and Whites Museum.
That part.
That's fabulous right there. And but it's connected to an institution in Baltimore. A Met Gala for Joy Baltimore. I mean, but I'm saying, don't take it out of its form. Like a lot of times I talk about the poets in Baltimore.
But that's when you have to know the arts.
Right. Yeah. And you have to have people who are familiar with the arts and the structure of the arts. Like I talk to a lot of poets, and a lot of poets in Baltimore don't realize that a real nigga show was nothing but a lot of poetry. But because
you have to be shitting me.
Yeah, that and you thought I was him.
But you have to be shitting me.
But because you had actors on the stage and you had a theater director putting this together, a lot of times we don't understand.
You got to be that close-minded.
Right, and that's the thing in Baltimore. That's the thing that I really say to so many. Hey, you're over here, you're over there. We kind of got to be able to kind of like work together and weave through. And I see that's why I go to everything. You're gonna see me at all the theaters. I work at Arena Players a lot, but I go to Art Centric and I see what they're doing. I go over to Spotlighters and I buy my ticket and I see what they're doing. And I get a chance to go and see what other people are doing and I talk about what I'm doing.
So when I hear these things, I can only think about our baby.
Mm-hmm.
If they're in systems where people are not really invested in them, and it's just status quo, where do they go? What do they do?
They don't go anywhere.
You've seen it early on. You recognize.
Yeah, and and I'm only one person. I only can do but so much. I only can run an organization for so long. I mean, and try to carry. One thing I pride myself on at the UB Blake Center, I was heavy on being an incubator for a lot of organizations. Now it's the thing to be in Baltimore City.
But I'm not going to do it. What would you tell the younger Troy that you didn't know today, and what would you tell the future Troy about tomorrow?
I would tell the younger Troy, um, stay on the path that you're on. However, be a little bolder with it. Make sure people know who you are and that you did that. You know, when I look at the organizations that are out here, a lot of these organizations, they had connected with me at some time and nobody knew. And they're doing great work because a young person came to me and said, Mr. Burton, I have an idea and I let you come in and I help you, you know, say, here's a space. You know, and when you tell the story, make sure you tell that what I helped you in terms of I don't need to be praised, but at the same time, you need to know, you know, this is the people who are pouring into you. And that's something I would tell the younger Troy. I I am very pleased with the path that I've taken and as an artist because I've always been there to be a sponge, a loving sponge, but also willing to pour. But I would say I would say just stay the course to the younger Troy. To the older Troy, whoo, Lord, keep living. Uh, um, and the same thing, the older Troy and the younger Troy is never deny your visions because the younger Troy trying to figure out how to do it. The older Troy knows how to do it, but at the same time, make sure you take care of yourself. I made sure for years I made sure everybody ate in the room, everybody got paid, but I didn't get paid. And that's something that I had to learn, you know, with my recent projects. I mean, I watched shows sell out for organizations, and I got the bare minimum, but I made the show happen. And if I can say that without trying to sound arrogant,
That's good.
but make sure I get mine. And that's what the older Troy would say. Make sure you get yours.
If I have not learned anything tonight, I've learned know your worth.
Yeah.
Know your worth.
Oh, I didn't talk about my other projects real quick.
No, we're going to get there. But see, it's never over. What's your coming up next?
Coming up next, one of the things I'm reflecting the past. I have said for so many years that there needs to be a documentary on arena players, on the youth theater. And I've said it over and over again, and nobody has done it. So one day I woke up and said, I'm going to do a documentary. So I connected with Mrs. Orange there, and currently I'm raising funds right now to get this documentary off the ground. And I'm working with the Baltimore Filmmakers Collective to do a documentary on the Arena Players Youth Theater because it's a 50-year-old program. It's the oldest youth theater program in the state of Maryland, continuously operating. And people don't know about the history. And so I think it's a great story to tell. So I'm telling it from the perspective of my 15 years of working with these young people.
Maybe when I tell you how things are going to work, because what I see is that documentary, and I'm sorry for me going a little overtime, that documentary is going to make it to all the film festivals. And it's going to make it a known institution right before its grand opening. Right before it's like you have to see the vision.
Yeah. And then to that project, because I got to travel all over to film this and, you know, pull it together. And I'm grateful for the Baltimore Filmmakers Collective. But then also I'm working on a project. It's called the Be More Black Narratives with Troy Burton. That's the first time I put my name on something. And it's almost like a one-man show, but where it's me, like you said, write the book. I'm writing the book in my way where I do it. They're monologues, soliloquy.
Here we go.
Poetry.
Well, y'all here? I hit Netflix. Here we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Here we go.
And
Baltimore. Get it while it's hot.
And I'm connecting it to my Baltimore experience. And so those are the two projects. That's the project that I'm currently writing. So, but the current project that will hit first will be the documentary. And so I'm working on those two projects. And, you know, and I continue to work to support other artists if they bring a new project. I got quite a few pieces that I'm reading that I will help a few artists get up and I'm going and continue to work with any organizations that will have me.
Wow.
I don't mind volunteering, but if you want me to come and you want me to do a whole lot of work, have a little budget.
Have a little budget.
Yeah, have a little
On that note, have a little budget. On that note, I want to say, Troy, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Oh my God. The history that you have not only taught me, but you have taught other people out there. I'm excited about the documentary. I'm excited about the book. I'm excited about the new plays. I think you need to redo the Real Nigga Show real soon.
But you know what?
Especially in this climate. Oh, Jesus, why did I say that? Why did I do that?
But you know what? Let me say this about that real quick. Those guys are a little bit, they've aged out now. If I were to do that, I would.
Some of the stories are still the same, Dave.
Right, but I would have to do, because there's stories for younger guys. And so I don't know if those guys would, I don't know if they would want to say, y'all aged out now, we got to get some young guys, because they were in their teens and 20s, and now they're in their late 30s and 40s.
In this climate right now.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. Well, maybe we can.
It'll be a part two. It will be a part two. See, and I didn't even know alcohol tonight, y'all. It had the Coca-Cola and ginger ale and tangerine.
Well, now that we get to the end, I'm going to
Cheers. You better sit. Thank you for tuning in. Till next week. I enjoy you. Bye.
Thank you.
What was that?